when they start off that, just so you understand, lying to us during the course of this exam is a felony. Okay, yeah.
Thank you so much for coming to my podcast and YouTube interview today. Our special guest today is Connor. He is a managing partner at a CPA firm in Michigan. And so, Connor, can you please just introduce a little bit more about yourself?
So I'm, like Rosie said, I'm a CPA out of Michigan. I'm one of the managing partners at Markov and Malatesta CPAs. We are a full-service public accounting firm that pretty much does everything but audits. That's about the only thing we don't do anymore. I had enough of that in a past life. Used to live in North Carolina a few years ago, moved up here to Michigan, which is, I'm actually originally kind of from this area. So I oversee all the financial accounting services for the firm, bookkeeping, cleanup, internal controls, GAAP implementation, fractional CFO, all that fun stuff is the world I live in. My tax partner and our tax team are down in Raleigh, North Carolina. They oversee all the fun tax problems that all of our clients have and whatever else it is that tax accountants do, because I try to stay as far away from that as possible.
Oh yeah, audit work. I know what you meant. I worked in audit for a year and it was not for me. So I know exactly. So Connor and I, we met at the AICPA Leadership Academy in 2022. And it was a great program. I had a great time there to meet you and any single other person in this group. Yeah,
it was definitely an experience. I'll admit, going into it, I did not realize how much of a big of a deal it was. I've got a bunch of friends that live in North Carolina, and I figured, hey, you know, if this ends up happening, then it gives me an excuse to travel down, see our office down there, go hang out with my friends that are in the area, and didn't really expect anything to happen. And then it did, and I showed up, and it was a big deal, and it was a fantastic experience. I was just kind of sitting there, I think, at the first day going, what have I gotten myself into? Like, I didn't realize this was going to be all everywhere and a super big deal, and so that was kind of a fun little surprise.
Yeah, it was. I was surprised when they picked me for this program, because I was like, there's no way I'm going to get chosen for this program, because I was told that it's pretty difficult, and I was like, I'm not that amazing, and so I don't know why I got picked up for this program, and I show up and I say, wow, these people are amazing. AICPA Leadership Academy was an amazing experience for me.
Yeah, I remember some of the writings that I did. I kind of jokingly told some friends of mine that were my recommenders that they're going to read through what I just talked about, and they're either going to be like, we absolutely want this guy, or he's a crazy radical rebel, and we need to keep him as far away from everyone else as possible.
Wow, I'm curious, what did you write out on it?
Just things like there is a way to run a profitable firm and have employees and make money and have good things come from all that without churning and burning through all your employees and, kind of relying on the influx of new people to replace all the ones that you have kind of squeezed the life out of. And I figured, well, considering I am dealing with a national organization and I don't know what ties are to some of the larger firms that are probably the exact culprits of what I was alluding to, and maybe they're not going to like that. We're just kind of directly calling it out. Who knows?
I see. Talking about the firm and then all the services that you're providing right now, I'm just wondering, from the very beginning, when you went to college, why did you choose accounting?
So I have a granduncle who's an attorney who was pretty adamant. Part of it was, all right, you got to go to college. You want to have a living. It is nice to have comfortable living. And so his big push was, go into finance, because a lot of the in finance, there's a lot of money. We're all pretty familiar with that crowd. And at Wake, to get into the business school, you have to take Accounting 111. They kind of use that as a weed out class. Everyone's required to take it. Pretty much failing intro to accounting will preclude you from even getting into the business school, even if you just want to go into finance or into business and enterprise management, some of the other disciplines. Doesn't matter. Everyone's got to take accounting 111. And my parents were like, you should try accounting, see how it goes if you like it. And it kind of just ended up, I took accounting 111. I was pretty good at it. I liked it well enough, and decided, all right, we'll probably major in it, because I was also considering computer science. And I actually ended up doing both. So my undergrad, I actually have a Bachelor of Science in accounting and computer science, which always gives me the fun little anecdote of talking to the business school advisors there, where they said, I asked them, can I double major? I want to major in accounting, but can I major in something else? Because getting a minors, if I'm going to put all this time and effort into it anyway, is going to be a kind of a waste of time. Let's get another set of actual useful skills for the future. So can I double major in computer science? And they said, well, we don't really recommend it. I said, okay, but am I not allowed to? You may not recommend it. It's not what I'm asking. Am I precluded? Am I not allowed to do a double major? And they said, you can. There's nothing stopping you. We just don't really recommend it because of the time and workload and, the stress of the program. And I said, yeah, all right, that's cool. I'm going to double major in both of them. They definitely weren't kidding. It was not a junior year nearly broke me, but we made it through. And what was kind of funny going through that is I kind of found that accounting and computer science have a particularly financial accounting. I hate tax accounting. The tax code is stupid. The just memorization of things and the fact that it's why do we do things? Well, it's because this is what the tax code says, because it was written by our wonderful congressmen who, as we all know, are very, very informed tax professionals, and so everything is designed with that mindset. To me, I found that financial accounting there's a certain level of logic to it. You may not be familiar with some of the standards, but when you know the fundamentals of financial accounting, you can reason your way through how to do things. And that I found had a kind of a natural click. And computer science and getting into coding is kind of a similar way. Even in accounting, everything is a sequential series of steps. One thing follows the next. Where you are is directly dependent on everything that has happened leading up to that point. And when you're writing computer code, assuming we're not talking about parallel computing, because that stuff is wizardry and I don't fully understand it, I get it, I just can't do it. Coding is, again, a series of just logical steps. You write code, it's going to do one thing after another, and usually when it has problems is because you are the idiot that didn't code things correctly and have references to area where they should, or didn't do your data cleanup or whatever. It's one step after another, and debugging is just going through step by step, figure out where did I break things. And so both of those, it was kind of an interesting mix, because particularly these days with how tech heavy literally everything is, it's been helpful to have kind of a fundamental understanding of how are these programs working at a high level, how do they communicate, and how does integrations from one feed into another. I ended up, it's a kind of not really a funny story, but the way the Wake program is designed, it's a 5-year program. You come out, you get your master's in accounting. I went through, did the 5-year program. I've got my master's in accounting. Great. You only needed 150 credit hours, to be honest. I probably could have saved some time, but those higher level classes did come in handy. But the way Wake's program is designed is that I think it's your second semester senior year, the first half of that semester, you go off and do an internship with an accounting firm. Most of them go and work Big Four. They go off and get sent all over the country, all over the world, to go do inventory observations in just the worst locations because they're the interns. I still had some classes I needed to get out of the way. had some computer science classes, taken cybersecurity and stuff like that. And so by the time that happened, I said, I have a couple required classes I got to take to finish my comp sci major. So that was probably the only semester I had where I got to take electives and got to take like acting and speech and motion and fun stuff like that, where I was actually, yeah, these classes are great. Considering I had 18 to 20 credit hour semesters beforehand trying to take intermediate accounting and, you know, advanced coding and all that fun stuff. It was a really nice break to take electives. And then I did my internship in between senior year of graduating undergrad and before starting my master's, where it actually turns out that at the time, the chief of staff of the cyber division of the FBI was a Wake alum. And they were looking for Wake students to apply to their honors internship program. And so I said, well, I got nothing else going on this summer. I'm probably not going to get picked. And sent in an application and ended up actually getting to do that it was supposed to be a 10-week program. It was very much a hurry up and try and push things through, so I think I got 6 weeks out of it, if I'm remembering correctly. But I ended up working out of the Raleigh field office. I was fully had a TS clearance. I had agents show up to my house to interview my parents. They interviewed neighbors. They interviewed my friends. Yeah, it was a full-fledged security interview. I always tell people, I've never been more stressed than when I had to get polygraphed by an FBI agent in a windowless room deep in the heart of the Charlotte HQ there for the FBI. That was, 0 out of 10 would not recommend. I passed, but I passed, but when they start off that, just so you understand, lying to us during the course of this exam is a felony. Okay, yeah. So, it was a great experience. It was my first real working experience. And I got to meet a lot of really, really fantastic agents there that there was a sense of purpose to what they did that you just don't have at any for-profit organization, right? When the goal of the entity is to make money, there's a kind of a sense of purpose and mission that, let's face it, it's just lost. You know, that's just the kind of the nature of the beast. But when you're there, they were very much focused on catching the bad guys and helping people, and it was a really, really cool, wonderful experience that, you know, for a time there, I had contemplated going and becoming an agent, but I needed to get some work experience ahead of time. I think they wanted 3 years of experience, and I needed to get some other experience to get my CPA license. And I just ended up starting an accounting firm instead.
After that internship, you start working at the police department as well for about 7 months. How did you end up with that police department instead not another accounting job?
So that was while I was in grad school, and it was pretty much just I needed some extra money, and they were trying to do these kind of student patroller things, and I was hot off the tail of that internship, and so I figured, why not? Gives me something to do. It's a new experience. I get to go out late at night and go wander around and just keep an eye on things. Nothing crazy ever really happened. I just got to drive a golf cart around the campus for the period for about a semester, if I'm remembering correctly. It was a working experience just to get to do something else, get to, do ride-alongs with some of the officers, get an understanding of how they do their things, and it was another really cool experience getting to talk to the officers on campus, learn about their careers and all that. It wasn't a serious, doing this to go then work police afterwards. It was it was a new thing that they had sent out, and I said, hey, I'm pretty certain I can pass a background check for this one.
You went through a lot worse than before, so yes, for sure, this time you will pass.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after that position, and then you start working in audit, and so I guess it must be after you graduate your master program. And so when you graduate from master program, a lot of people may advise you to go private or public. what led you to public accounting and especially going for audit, not tax? And I know you mentioned you didn't like tax classes.
I mean, yeah, that pretty much answers the question there. I did not have much of an enjoyment of the tax classes and how all that worked. I got through corporate tax, I don't remember, probably got a B if I had to hazard a guess, but it wasn't something that really clicked for me. I just kind of knew I preferred the financial accounting side. Auditing was somewhat related to the kind of the investigative kind of work that I've been doing through my internship, and so I said, all right, well, we'll just kind of continue this and see. And so I ended up in between. So normally, when you go through the program, you have interviews and you try to pick up a job before you leave. Well, it turns out that I must not interview well in certain circumstances because none of the Big Four wanted anything to do with me. They were just, we don't want to continue forward. And I was like, yeah, that's fair enough. I did just finish working at the FBI. And so I was applying for some public accounting roles, and at the same time was studying for my CPA exam. Because I wanted to kind of get as much of that as possible out of the way before I started working full-time. So I spent the summer of 2017, started with FAR because it's the worst, and spent probably a couple months kind of studying for that one. And then I ended up, if I'm remembering my timing correctly, and this is one of those things that I would not recommend anyone do, I want to say I took FAR, and then a couple weeks later I took Audit, and then 2 or 3 days after Audit I took BEC.
2 or 3 days?
Yeah.
You did not even look at the book, I bet.
At that point, I was just burning through multiple choice questions, and also could not emotionally care on whether I would pass or not. I'm not much of a study over a long period of time, which is what I learned studying for FAR, was that I just started forgetting stuff from the beginning. And so I ended up kind of condensing the study period for Audit down to like a couple weeks to kind of cram for it. I do jokingly tell people I did somehow manage to pass that exam, and I did not know what a trial balance was.
You must be joking.
They were like, the trial... Nope. Told you I logicked my way through a lot of the audit exam, and they're like, here's the trial balance. And man, I wish I knew what that was. I must have forgotten that from when I took advanced auditing techniques.
Wow.
And then by the time BEC rolled around, I was just full-fledged crammed for probably 16 hours a day for a couple days, just to work through the multiple choice questions to make sure I understood kind of the fundamentals and the why behind what the answers were, and then went and took it, and then probably slept for like 12 hours afterwards. That whole week is just a kind of a gap in my memory.
Oh my god! I couldn't believe that. That's so totally. How long did it take you to finish the whole fall section?
So I knocked out 3 of the 4, managed to pass FAR, Audit, and BEC on the first try. Audit, I got like a 79. FAR, I got a 77. And went, don't care, it's a pass.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I think if I'm remembering correctly, I want to say by the winter. So I started working for the firm as a staff auditor in, I want to say September of 2017, if I'm remembering my start date correctly. And I made the mistake, so I ended up having to take reg twice. Mostly because the first time I took it was the very beginning of January, and so I will tell you, and to anyone else who hears this, that attempting to study for the CPA exam after Christmas is a stupid idea. I did not study enough, did not study well enough, and got like a 60-something on it, and was like, yeah, I'm not surprised by this one. It was post-Christmas. I didn't really want to deal with it. So I don't remember when exactly I took reg again. It was sometime after busy season. I took like a week off of work to just cram for it. Because again, I can't do the long-term study stuff. I just end up forgetting things. But if I give like a week to, study 15 hours a day for it, then by the end I'll be good to go. So I don't fully remember when I passed reg. I do remember that I got my North Carolina CPA license in February of 2019. So it was probably by the following so probably summer of 18 is when I passed reg, and then or in the fall, somewhere in there. I don't remember. All I can tell you is that they finalized the paperwork and issued the cert in February 2019, and there we go.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. Going through the exam, I was like, it was challenging for me to pass all 4 sections. And then I literally took the whole 18-month window because I was working and then studying. And then also I was like a student. I had to take classes as well. So all 3 things at the same time. I couldn't do what you did.
I mean, honestly, what you had going on is probably harder than the way I did it, because at the time I was unemployed, for 3 of the sections. It was like, I have nothing else to do other than study. And it was a challenge finding the time to study for the last one. So I was glad to get that out of the way before I started working full time, because that was a lot of the advice I'd gotten while I was in college, was just get it done in the summer before you start working, because once you start working, it's going to be so much worse and take so much longer. And they definitely weren't kidding.
That's so true. It's difficult to study and then working at the same time. And then after you work as an audit staff accountant for about 2 years and 3 months, and then you just quit and then start your own. That's a very scary, risky, and I would say brave journey. And I would love to hear about that journey. How did you end up with the decision that I'm going to do my own? Oh, I see the cat.
Yep, that's Miss Kitty. She sometimes likes to, when I'm on any sort of video call, she may come over and she'll start to just shove her face or go, haha, you can't move, pet me. So I knew leaving college that I wanted to work for a smaller firm because I wanted to get a more diverse range of experience. I wanted to avoid a situation where I spend the first 2 years of my career auditing cash for, Walmart or something like that, where you're just worked as a, one of the cogs working on a giant project, and you only get to see that little thing. So I ended up going with a large regional because I wanted to. Partially, they offered me a job, and I said sure, but also because I knew I wanted to get a wide range of experience. So I got to experience. We had clients that on the small scale were $500,000 a year insurance companies, all the way to working on billion-dollar plus contractors with 1,000 employees or something like that, and then kind of the full range of experience in between. Throw some government audits in there as well, just for good measure, and baby, you got a stew going. And there was a lot of, because it wasn't public companies, there was a lot of got to do first year audits and see the messes, work through these first year audits, get to plan the whole thing out, and just got to learn a ton. The partner that I was working for was really, really good at what he does. I don't know if he'll ever see this, but if you do, Scott, eternally grateful for everything that we went through while I was working for you, because those 2 years laid the groundwork for everything that I've been able to do from that point forward. But what ended up happening, I always kind of jokingly told him, I said, why are we doing audit work when we could do CAS work, client accounting work, and get paid more and kind of have less stress? Because anyone who's touched an audit knows they're incredibly stressful. And in 2019, I was living at home, and my folks had the opportunity to leave North Carolina and move back to Michigan. And I said, well, why not? I don't really feel compelled to live alone in Raleigh, North Carolina. I've got student loans that I want to pay, and I don't want to really throw a Raleigh, North Carolina level rent bill into the mix as well. It is kind of nice not being, destitute between student loans and rent payments. So I decided to move with them. Ended up quitting my job and just said I'm gonna go try freelance. At its core, cleaning up client accounting work is akin to a first-year audit when you're trying to figure out their processes, their procedures, what their financial records are. Considering some of the engagements that we had worked on, I was pretty confident that for a small business, I could figure out what their stuff was supposed to be, since we'd had plenty of engagements that had gotten there was a lot of work to figure out what the proper financial numbers were. And so I figured, I can do that, and I don't have to worry about independence or sampling or ensuring that things are with the auditing standards, because I'm not issuing any audit opinions and just doing whatever. And just made the decision, said, all right, I'm going to go freelance. Ended up helping get the house ready to sell for a couple months, as I was kind of focused on helping that painting, a lot of getting it cleaned up and all that. So gave some time to get through that whole process. And then, as I'm sure we're all familiar, something happened in the beginning of 2020 that basically just totally changed everything. And I remember we left North Carolina to move up to Michigan on the one day where when they were up on TV, and Fauci and all of them were basically saying, for the love of God, don't go anywhere because COVID, and we're doing lockdowns, and don't travel, don't leave your house, hide your kids, hide your wife, hide everything, COVID's coming for you. We left at like 2 or 4 in the morning to drive from Clayton, North Carolina up to Rochester Hills, Michigan. Ended up being a 16-hour trip to move all of our stuff. I mean, it was middle of the pandemic. There's that kind of fear of going into restaurants or, McDonald's, the fast food, the gas stations, the everything. There are good portions of that trip that I do not remember. Because I was so tired, and it was so stressful, and removing everything, and removing animals, and all that, and it just was not a good time, not a good time for anyone. And it was just one of those, we left North Carolina, it was like 70 degrees at 4 in the morning. By the time we got to Michigan, it was snowing. And then at that point, I mean, COVID was kind of in full swing. Nobody was doing stuff in person, because this was April of 2020. And in a weird way, I got really lucky. There's no other way to kind of say it. It was just kind of right place at right time, because COVID forced everyone virtual. And so suddenly everyone found out, I don't actually need to see my accountant in person. So I ended up being able to pick up some work through a freelance website, and that kind of started to get things going. I remember around that time, that's where I learned cash flow management firsthand, because I was sitting there putting together a budget of, all right, how much money do I need to pull in every month just to meet all of my necessary obligations? How much cash do I need? We'll worry about taxes later. That's a 9 months from now problem. We'll deal with all that when it happens. How much money do I need so that I literally do not, just run out of cash? I got lucky and did a balance transfer that had quite a few months of 0% interest. It was like, all right, cool, that's gonna help for a little bit. And that's where I learned the importance of cash flow management, was how to manage my own personal cash flows to make sure I didn't run out of money. And around that time, I was kind of torn on what to do. Do I try and do freelance? Is this really gonna happen? Or try and pick up a job somewhere? And there was a large company that down in Detroit that I was interviewing for. It was for an internal audit role. Well, they, like a good company, did their due diligence on me and had found some of my freelance profiles where I mentioned leaving the, quote, dark side of auditing. Turns out they didn't really appreciate that.
Wow.
So during the interview, they literally said to me, you know, you have on one of your social media profiles, you say you left the dark side of auditing. You know, can you explain what you meant by that? And I went, well, this is a bust. Sure. No one likes auditors. It's like, I was there. I knew every time I sent an email, the person on the other side saw that email and went, damn it, I don't want to have to deal with this because the auditors need something. And it's not a slight. Auditors do fantastic work and it's absolutely necessary. And the more businesses that I deal with, the more I go, you guys really should get audited so that you can get your act together. But it's just one of those that, I mean, when you're the enforcer of something, most people aren't going to like you. And so as this was going on, and I was totally kind of just blowing this interview, I ended up picking up an engagement to put together 2 years of financial records because this guy was potentially interested in doing like an investment into this business. And they didn't have any financial records, and it was let's put it together to see whether we should move forward with this or not. And I remember I was so excited because I was able to justify like $2,000 worth of work. At the time, I was doing work for like $40 an hour as a licensed CPA out there because it was like I had to solve the problem. If you tell someone as a freelancer you have 2 years of experience, no one will hire you. If someone says to you, yeah, I've been doing this for 2 years, that number does not inspire confidence. And so that's where I ended up having to figure out, what are the tools that I have available in order to pull in clients. Obviously I can compete in cost because literally I need the money. So I'm not going to work for minimum wage. There's got to be a set point. I don't want to go too low and make them go, what are you doing charging $10 an hour? But at the same time, it's really hard to justify trying to charge, $120 an hour or something like that with what I've got going on. And so I had to kind of quickly learn, how do I sell my experience without talking about how long I've been doing it? And that's where I found out that if you talk about the things that you've been doing and all the different projects and the things that you've done and here's what happened and here's what we did, and you don't mention how long you've been doing it for, they kind of forget about asking the duration and they go, oh, you've done this, you've handled all these things, I feel confident that you can handle it. Now at this point, I'm coming up on 6.5, 7 years of public accounting. It's not really an issue anymore, and considering what we've done up to this point, it's not a problem. But it was a unique challenge to suddenly go, oh god, I had to figure out how to sell myself, otherwise no one's going to pay me.
It's a challenge for you when you just do it at the early career stage. I have to say that
very early.
Yeah, very kudos to you.